Engineering special, commercially stronger conversations. If this was a book, the subtitle to this would be Why Engineering Sales Teams Must Move from Product to Problem Conversations. Product to problem. You're probably going to hear me say that a couple of times. It's becoming a bit of a catchphrase for all the stuff that I'm doing because it's with that that I'm starting to see most impact, best effects. So just before we get into that, I've got a question for you guys. Question for you. And that is that I'm going to give you 5 options of what you might be seeing in the world of sales today. A, B, C, D, E. When I get to the end, I'll ask you just to put into chat which 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of those are you seeing. So you might be seeing that we as salespeople are getting involved later in the sales process. So customers are more advanced if you like. There's more information out there. They're taking all of that. They're trying to self-diagnose. They're sort of working things out for themselves. They don't want people involved. Maybe they're not seeing the value, which is a bit of a worry for us. And so you might be seeing that people, your customers, are more advanced. They're later in the process when they're talking to you. Because of this, you might see that they are biased towards their thinking. And this can come across as them being more demanding. Hey, look, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to do it. This is how it's going to be. And we're sort of trying to help. We're trying to do stuff. But it's like, no, that is the thing we are trying to do. So you might see later in the process, they're more advanced and that they are more demanding. Sounds as though the customers are sitting pretty there. However, we might also see that the world is a more confusing place. So our customers, bless them, are confused. There's a lot going on out there. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of stuff that they have got to get their heads around. Yeah, we are in this VUCA world, aren't we? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. They're feeling all of this as much as we are. So maybe the customers are also confused. You might also be seeing that there are more people involved in the decision being made. So there's more decision makers, more stakeholders. I talk about the decision-making unit. There's more people involved in that. So you might also be seeing that that's going on. That's D. And then E, we've got kind of more emotional factors being brought into that decision. So more personal. People are worried about their risk, think about their own goals, their own aspirations. Yes, that very personal element that means that we can't ignore the emotional, even if we've got quite a logical sale. So that's A, B, C, D, E, advanced, bias, confused. Decision makers are increased and they've got these emotional factors. Which one of those, or 2 of those, or 3 of those, or 4 of those, or all 5 are you seeing? Okay, I'm looking down in chat there. And we've got D, we've got more decision makers. Yeah, makes absolute sense. That's what a lot of the research is showing. We're seeing C. Yeah, the world is a confusing place. Sometimes I just think, how do we make sense of this? So our customers are saying. So it's an opportunity for us. Yeah, in the Q&A, which others can't see, I'm seeing all. Yeah, I'm seeing all to a degree. BC, yeah, demanding and confused. Demanding confused customers. What a joy. B, C, D, A. Yeah, they're probably also more emotional. Maybe you've not picked up on it. So yeah, look, that's what's going on. World of sales today, and this is what's informing a lot of my thinking that I've got to help people deal with that. So awesome. Yeah, thank you for getting involved. In the chat, anything you want to be putting, any questions, any stuff, little conversations between yourself, they're always quite fun. I'll sort of keep an eye on it. But yeah, feel free, get stuck in there. It's all part of the fun. What is the aim of today? Well, look, it's to highlight some areas for wins for you guys, offer advice, ideas, guidance, and look, if there's questions, yep, bang them in there, and I will try and answer them. So look, what we're going to talk, about this idea of from product to problem. I mentioned that already. Then we're going to go into these commercial pillars. So this is stuff that I've been working on that if we can help people understand this, then when they go into the actual practical framework, life becomes a lot easier. So we're kind of going philosophy, pillars, and then the framework, the practical framework. So look, about yourselves, if you could just pop, what industry are you in, and maybe your job role. I'll keep a little eye on that. Helps me just fine tune some of the stuff that I'm saying as we're going through this. In the meantime, while you're typing that, who am I? So my name's Fred Copestake. I'm founder of Brindis, which is a sales training consultancy. Over the last 25 years, I've been around the world 14 times, worked in 38 different countries, trained over 10,000 salespeople, which is it's a real honor to have done that. It's a real privilege, good fun as well. And what it's helped me do is really see what the challenges are that people are having to deal with to get success. And that's what drove me or inspired me or helped me to write my first book, Selling Through Partnering Skills, which is all about being more collaborative in the way we work. So consultative is great. Collaborative, working on stuff together, I would say is better. So if we think like a partner, then that drives the way in which we operate with our customers. That's what that is essentially all about. Came out in 2020. Uh, Same time as you know what. And so 2020, like, I was like everyone else, locked down, couldn't do things. Watched all of Netflix, all of it. Got to the end, I think it was Tiger King, and thought, come on, Copestake, you could be doing something better here. The world is changing around us. How people are going to have to operate is different. And so I started to get my head around that, and that's why I wrote second book, Hybrid Selling, which just helps people to think about how we can adapt to a lot of these changes that are going on. Uh, there is a natural progression to this work. And those who know me well know I have a fascination with threes. And so, most recently, the latest book I've written is Ethical Selling. So, ethical selling, all about how we can just do stuff in a better way. Because ultimately, if I'm going to give you my 10-second introduction, it's all about good people doing good things in a good way. So read that at whichever level you want. Competent people achieving results because they got a good process. Inherently decent people who are having an impact and making a difference because of the way that they choose to go about things. Both of those work. I think the latter is probably more powerful. But look, that's about me. That's kind of how I'm set up. That's the stuff that I'm doing. I want to make this go out at you and help you get your heads around these elements: product problem, uh, commercial pillars, and the value operational practical framework. So, product problem. So, this is it's all about how we align. Yeah, when we're not aligning properly, various things are going to happen. So, what can happen, and I see this a lot in people in the technical sale, and particularly engineering, manufacturing world, is that the offer or their focus tends to be around the machinery, the specifications, the outputs, their technical capability, features, engineering detail. And there's nothing wrong in this per se, apart from the customer is trying to solve different stuff. They're not looking out for that. They're thinking, how do I deal with these operational problems? These commercial pressures that my business is under, the labor issues that I've got, the risk that's happening in my business. I'm trying to scale. I'm worried about how I'm going to implement certain stuff. How do I make sure everybody in the organization is behind what we're doing and these decisions? That's what's going on in their world. And so potentially with cross purposes, we're talking about different stuff. What that means, what we see is that this is when deals stall. If you've got procurement involved, it makes it easier for them to focus in on price because they start comparing like and like. The senior stakeholders, they disengage, they're less interested because these things at an operational level are not the strategic things that they're trying to achieve. We get stuck in a kind of feature comparison. They've got that, they've got that, they got that, they got that, rather than actually the impact, the stuff that we can really make happen for them. What means is that sales teams work harder. They chase success by trying to do more, arguably more of the wrong thing. So when we're saying that we want to shift from product to problem, or the conversation around product to problem, We're not saying that we're abandoning technical expertise completely. Not saying you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Not saying that the product isn't important. Yeah, part and parcel of it. But it's not the be all and end all. What we're saying here is that there's ways in which we can use that knowledge, we can use the way we set up, we can use how we actually run the conversations to be more commercially valuable for us, but also for the customer. Think like a partner. So, what helps us do this? So there's these reoccurring patterns, there's these things that I've seen going on in these technical sales environments. Um, not because people are lacking intelligence, it's just that where they're focusing, using that intelligence and using their skills. So these observations, these things that kind of I've been seeing over the years, they've materialized into these commercial pillars. So there's these 7 commercial pillars that we're going to talk about. So pillar 1 is product gravity. So look, teams are proud of what they build. Of course they are. And people are going to be comfortable talking about that when they're looking at the solution. But like we've said, the buyers aren't really necessarily looking at this. Yeah, so what happens is this gravity, this product gravity, it sort of pulls people towards that stuff they're comfortable and know about. And so what will happen is the conversation naturally goes into the features, the specs, the outputs, and ultimately that's going to end up in price. I've seen this so many times. You can probably recognize it, maybe haven't given it a name. So product gravity is the way that I'm trying to describe that, and we're going to come up with ways to deal with it. So what we're saying with pillar 2, this is commercial curiosity. So commercial curiosity, it's thinking and concentrating on stuff beyond the product. So it's almost like the fix for that, if you like, that we've just talked about. Yeah. Where we see this strong shift is when salespeople can become genuinely interested in things like the operations, the workflow, those labor pressures, market conditions, bottlenecks, future growth. This sort of stuff that a business, the customer being a business that they're operating with, is trying to achieve. If we put this in practical, kind of very kind of blunt, black and white type terms, the shift is from rather than, okay, so what machine do you need? It's to how is your world actually working and what can we do to augment, to improve, to get involved with that, which might involve a bit of machinery. Yes, it might. So our next pillar here is about deliberate discovery. Now, the way that I've seen many people's brains work is that they want to solve stuff quickly. And that's a blessing and a curse. I mean, it's fantastic that people can do this. But sometimes it's too quick and it's before the buyer has actually really understood what is the problem. So when we can make a shift from let's do that super quick, show how smart we are, to let's slow the conversation down, not necessarily withholding expertise or anything, but just exploring the different possible solutions and what people are actually trying to do. And we discover that together. That's why it's called discovery. So here what we're saying is that the kind of questions we could use, the kind of questions curious people would have. Yeah. So what does success actually look like? What happens if this continues? What operational impact is this creating? Who else is affected by this? We'll get that stronger, more rounded commercial conversation. So the next pillar is customer defined value. So the thing we could say here is that customers aren't really buying machines. They aren't really buying stuff for the sake of buying stuff. Yeah, they're buying what it helps them achieve. And so when we start to think about, well, what are they trying to achieve and what is valuable for them, because they define it, then it changes what we talk about and the outcomes of our conversations. So here, again, what can happen is that we can start to impose what we think the value that the customer is looking for. And we will often drift into things like innovation, capability, features, performance, the precision, the output. Look at all this stuff we're good at. Of course, you're going to have to value this. They are probably the inputs to the outputs that the customer is looking for, and that is the real value for them. So they might be more thinking about the downtime, that implementation, and making that less risky, taking that pressure of kind of labor shortage off. Yeah, reliability, how easy things are to use. Yeah, the future, are they confident in how the business is going to operate? When we start understanding what's happening on their side, what they're valuing, then we can start to pick the stuff which is going to contribute towards that, but keep them as the ones who've defined it. That's what customer defined value is about. So the next pillar here is about collaborative conversations. Some conversations can feel quite transactional. Yeah, a bit one-sided, a bit like you tell me some stuff because I need it, and then I'm going to tell you what probably I was going to tell you anyway. Whereas others, a more collaborative conversation, we get more from it. Both parties get more from it. Yeah, we're not actually just trying to win the deal. It's helping someone get their head around something. That's how I would describe the collaborative style. We're working kind of alongside each other rather than me trying to sell or push something. So here again, look, we move from this sort of talk about the product, talk about the capability, talk about the specs, to actually what is going to give this person confidence? What's going to make them comfortable in the thing that we're trying to do here? How do we communicate better? How do we build trust? How do we reduce risk? This is what all the books are about. That when I say this is natural progression, where I'm seeing that salespeople who can use honesty, reflection, who are good at discussion, helping people with their uncertainty, who are able to explore stuff, they are more successful. That's what we need to bring into what it is and we're doing, how we operate. So sixth pillar is like this deliberate commercial thinking. I don't know if you found that sometimes the sales environment we're in can be incredibly reactive. Yeah, there's emails, there's problems popping up, we've got to get quotes out, got to update stuff, we're fighting fires left, right, and center. Day feels really full. God, I was busy today. Um, but it's not always meant that it's been effective. So here it's where salespeople are actually a little bit selfish. And that might sound a bit weird with all the other things I've said. But by this, I mean they're more deliberate in where they invest their time. I'll often say on training, time is our most valuable resource. And so how are we going to invest that? Which opportunities matter the most? Let's be selective. There is nothing wrong with qualification and deciding, look, this is where we can have the biggest impact. Both parties, better for all of us. How do we prepare? How do we turn up with interesting stuff to say, to do, to stimulate people, to share that insight? Where are we going to get long-term value from the work that we're doing now? That's what I mean by deliberate commercial thinking. And the last pillar here is about this problem fluency. So again, I've seen so many technical salespeople who are excellent at explaining product. I mean, they're really, really good at it. But I've almost said this already, but buyers are looking for something different. What's the impact on my operation? So what's the consequences commercially? How's this affecting efficiency, workflow, scale? That's what people are actually looking at, but we can get obsessed with products. So the product, we want to move into problem fluency. Products are problem, recurring theme there. So again, rather than like this machine has this feature, it does this thing. It's like, well, what is that meaning for the customer? Reducing downtime, improving production flow, reducing dependency on labor. They're the kind of things that when we're taking this conversation to a different place, one that customers can think, wow, this is useful for me, then we're likely to be more effective. That's essentially what the pillars about. The 7 pillars, very fast introduction through them, skipping through to get to the, well, okay, if we're saying that that stuff makes sense and we want to can plug this into the way that we work. How do we plug it into the way that we work? Okay, so that's what the value framework is all about, the operational, the practical framework. Taking those concepts, taking those ideas and going, right, okay, so what do I actually do? How do I make that happen? So value framework, validate, align, leverage, underpin, evolve. Bit of an author thing. Could give it a nice acronym, something that kind of makes sense. Um, but look, simple version of this is those five elements. It is about having the right opportunities so that we can do the right research, so that we can have the right conversations to deliver the right solutions, which deliver the right outcomes for customers. Customers buy outcomes. I'm like a stuck record on that in training. They don't buy your product, they don't buy your service, they buy the results, they buy the outcomes. Actually, if we start at that, that's where our best opportunities lie, where we can deliver those outcomes and where we can have that effect. So that's what the value frameworks helps us do. It takes practical stuff, which normally we can apply this in a 90-day action plan. So what I'm supposed to do is I will talk through some of the key elements that we would include in that. And I'll actually just give you the time frames. So if you want to watch the recording, if you want to take this away, if you want to implement this stuff yourself, this is how you can do it without too much overwhelm. Because it's the overwhelm that I think quite often has messed up sales training. Hands up, probably been guilty for that myself. Done 3, 4, 5-day sales trainings. When we chop it down, we can have better impact because of implementation. Implementation beats information every time. So yeah, there's different parts that we're going to start to focus on as we implement that. And the key here is that we can take it and we can put it into real life opportunities. Learn stuff for the sake of it. Yeah, it's lovely. The brain, same effect on the brain as sugar, actually, apparently. But when we're applying it into real life, so it's actually making stuff happen, we learn better. And we're happy for it because we're making more sales. So if we look at the first sort of chunk of time, that first couple of weeks, this is all about getting the mindset right. This is all about getting our heads around those commercial pillars, around this concept of thinking like a partner. Think like a partner. That's the core of collaborative selling. Yeah, what would somebody who sat alongside someone, how would they operate? What would they do? You know, how they're building trust, how they're focusing on mutual goals, how they're becoming interdependent. What stuff can we do deliberately in the way in which we're selling? Are we trying to sell at people? Are we trying to work with them? It's worth spending a bit of time to get your head around that because it sets up the rest of the implementation of the value framework. That's where the pillars really start to come to life. So that then we can start to get a lot more practical. So a couple of things that are worth you looking at. So right opportunities, right targets, it's all about this is validate. So this is the profiling, the value proposition and the messaging, getting this stuff sorted early doors. So here we're talking about the ideal customer profile, the ICP. Who is it that we should be talking to? Are we clear on this? Because what we can do when we've got that, when we understand those criteria, we can qualify, we can disqualify. Qualify in, yep, absolutely, they are right for us. We can have impact, we can create impact. That's what I want to work with. Disqualify, no, not right for us. We're probably not right for them either. Let's not go there. Let's not waste our time. And then we can assign the right activity. There's some tools, there's some techniques, there's things that we can do. But basically just being very aware, very conscious about who we should be working with. That's what I'd apply at that stage. Because it starts to inform our value proposition. Or, as I often will say, value proposition. See, a lot of propositions, they're all about the company. Yeah, we, aye. Aren't we awesome? We've been around all these years. You know, we've got to be thinking about what potentially the value is to customers. We're having a bit of a guess here, but we can make an educated guess. Educated guess. When we understand our customer, when we understand that ICP and the people involved, we can start to think what's going on in their world, what is causing them pain, what is the prize that they would look for. Pain, prize, pain, prize. Prize is usually opposite to pain. Pain away from, so that's quite strong when we talk to people about that. But it's strong because it shows that we know them. It shows that we understand them. It shows that we get their world and that we want to talk about the stuff that they most likely care about and are thinking about already. They're probably not thinking about our products. So paying price is quite a key part of thinking that I encourage people to do because it informs what you say and what you do. It has such an impact on messaging. And when we think about the messaging we've got to do today, all those different channels, phones, emails, videos, LinkedIn and other social media, I have face-to-face meetings. There's so many different forms that the message takes place. But the core of the message, the stuff that's there, if we based it in that solid grounding, it's going to land better. What people are thinking is what they care about. Uh, I said kind of in passing there, video. Video is very interesting. I like video at the moment because you can turn up and people can meet you before they meet you. And they can keep meeting you along the sales process and they can introduce you to other people. So yeah, video tools, video I use, no affiliation with them, but stuff where we set up sending videos to people, I think is quite a smart move. Bit of tactics. So look, those are the bits of the value framework in the validate or in the right opportunities phase. As we move into the next bit, so if we're looking at doing this and you're looking to chunk this down to make it work for you, this is where you now assign the next fortnight, thinking about how you align, so how you research properly. So this is where things like your account plan comes into play, where understanding change drivers is useful, and where we really start to dig down into what customers value. So I don't know if people have come across this expression, plans are nothing, planning is everything. I'll be honest, first time I came across that, I didn't really understand it. I thought it was gobbledygook. It didn't really mean anything to young Fred. I'm like, that makes sense. Now I get it, it makes utter sense. The process of planning, the work of the thinking that we do to set us up with some activity but which probably needs to change as a result of the activity, that is where the value lies. It's easier to change, it's easier to react when we've done that stuff up front. So I get it now. I'm matured. So yeah, look, we can look at more traditional account plans. So one I will often use is based around kind of what objectives, what are we actually trying to achieve here? What goal? What are we aiming towards? Who's involved in the decision-making unit? Who's the who's who? What are they likely to care about? How are they? How they're responding to what we're saying. SWOT analysis. Yeah, so where are we coming from? Also, I like to do a SWOT analysis from their part or their perspective in their what they're trying to achieve. That generates some insight. Who's our competition? Who are we selling against, including status quo, including do nothing? And so what actions will this start to drive? So it gives us a thinking process. That's quite a simple account plan process, but it works. It works. Another thinking tool. So at this stage, it's about thinking tools. One I quite like is change drivers, particularly if you are selling into more senior people. If you're selling at C-suite, you have to do this stuff. But even kind of more senior people, let's have a look at what is changing the world that they're operating in. That's the stuff that they'll be on the lookout for and trying to deal with. And we can anticipate it to a degree. So the change drivers respect where their pain might be coming from, if we're going to use that language. Regulatory, economic, social, political, environmental, competitive, and technological. They're the kind of root causes of the stuff which are kind of going on in the world around us, but might be coming in, impacting on who it is we're speaking to. Let's think about that. Let's talk to them about it. Show them we've thought about it. Because this takes us to customer value. So customer value, I put the Scooby-Doo van there. It's not about Scooby-Doo. It's because it's called the Mystery Machine. And it always reminds me of when I talk about value, the conversation I had with a colleague, Mike Wilkinson. We were traveling somewhere, do some work, and he said, Fred, value is a mystery. I looked at him and went, yes, Mike. What do you mean? Something else I didn't understand. And he said, well, no, think about it. Like, you don't know what value is. Your customer might not know what the value is. What we've got to do is we've got to work with them to understand that. That's what a good salesperson will do. They will be the catalyst, the detective, Scooby-Doo, in uncovering that mystery or solving it. And then, yeah, I've used that ever since. So yeah, thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. But one of the things that we can do now is have a better understanding, better preparation of customers than ever before. Um, Actually, could you put into chat, are you using AI in how you sell? Just a little yes or no. Just yes or no. Yep, using AI. No. So it could be that you're using it to write emails and to help with social posts, or it could be that you're using it to help you to think about what it is your customers care about. This is a very simple model. I'm now talking about building sales brains at the beginning of a whole opportunity and kind of feeding stuff in there and keeping an ongoing conversation with more and more activity and inputs to help us get our head around it. So yeah, I'm seeing some yeses in there and only to find certain pieces of information. Uh, okay, so the advice here is to use the AI as a thinking partner. It's not just a run and get, it's help me kick these ideas around. So for instance, this is a super simple way of doing it. Go to your chosen LLM and think about who it is that you're going to sell to. So for me, it might be a sales director at an engineering company. I'll say, look, tell me about the role of a sales director at an engineering company. It'll go, okay, cool. Yeah, I know most of that. Oh, actually, no, tell me more about that. Got it. What are the aims of the the sales director at an engineering company? Yeah. What are the KPIs? Actually, I quite like asking that. What are they measured on? What are their objectives? Well, I want to know what they're trying to achieve. Sales to a degree, but there's ways in which that they're trying to achieve that. Okay, well, can I align to it? Already thinking. Now, we're going to go deeper. So here we can just switch it round and we can use an act as. So we keep the conversation going and say, you are the sales director at an engineering company. Yeah, or act as. Tell me, what pressures are you under on a daily basis? Pressures. I like the word pressures. It seems to work well here. Oh, okay, interesting. Now then, what impacts does that have on you? Professionally, personally? Yeah, professionally, yeah, of course we can talk about that, but personally, those emotional drivers that we might be tapping into. The last bit is what are the dreams? What are the goals? What are the things you're trying to achieve? So even just a little chat with ChatGPT, it's called that for a reason, isn't it? Yeah, will help you uncover. There's other ways we can go a lot deeper and prompt a whole way of finding out information and then feeding it, like I say. But that's it. That's a fast way. You use the AI as a thinking partner. For me, that's the most effective thing. Different webinar. Could go about that for a bit. But there we go. That's what we're looking at in the align. So the align phase is where we're doing this research, we're getting ready, we're finding information, we're creating insights, we're building perspectives, because that is going to help us in the next phase. So next phase, if you're taking this and you're going to apply it, yeah, you're in your next little 2 week block. This is where we start to leverage. So we leverage this information, we bring it into play. Yeah, it's about decent conversations, insight, questions, meeting structure. So insight, I think of this as shining a light on something. That research we've done, is there something that we might have seen that they haven't thought of? Is there something we've seen that they have thought of, but maybe no one else is talking to them about? That's quite a positive way of operating. So just bringing some kind of perspective or something interesting to the table. Now, that's what's going to set us apart. If you're going to try and battle talking about product, my product, my product, my product, you're going to sound the same as everyone else. Yeah. Well, my product's different though. The more you protest the product's different, the more you're going to sound like everyone else, because that's what everyone else is doing. We're innovative. Yeah, every single person in the world puts that on their website. Yeah, so think about, can I bring something to the party that's going to help people think differently and I am perceived different because of how I'm actually acting, not because of what I'm saying. So insight, it's a biggie. And that wraps into the way in which we ask questions. Questions, core of good selling. Core of good selling, because it helps people to think. Let me repeat that. Questions help people to think. Now, when I first started in sales and even in sales training, questions were about getting us information so we could take the information and we could build a solution and we could rock up and say, look at the solution. Clever, aren't we? Little bit of that still, but the salesperson as the sense maker, for me, makes more sense. Yeah. We're helping them to think, we're helping them make sense, we're bringing clarity, and they will see value in that. They will see value in the interaction with us because of how they leave those conversations. So from a commercially stronger conversation point of view, shifting from product to problem, your questions and questions designed for thinking, real differentiator. That's stuff that can set you apart. So we plug those into a meeting structure. So I like to train people in a certain structure. I use AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. Been around since last century. I mean, the very beginning of last century, 1901, 2, 3, whatever it was. But it works. It works because it aligns with how people think. And it keeps us in the ask before tell pattern. So we can bring all that in. We can understand it, model it, practice it, and use that couple of weeks to really bring stuff alive. So then we move it on. We move it on. We've got our framework going on. And here we're talking about the next little chunk. The next chunk is we can focus on the right solutions. The right solutions. Yeah, we still provide solutions. You know, the product, the service, the stuff surrounding that. I'm not saying it's not important. It's how we're getting there and what we're how we're positioning it. So here we talk about proposals, how we write proposals. There's structures to all this stuff. There's structures, playbooks, game plans. Yeah, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I found typically a lot of salespeople aren't good at this. I don't know why. They just probably don't like doing the desk work. It just makes sense. It's a solid sales tool. I've said that for years and years and years. It's easier to write these now. We can get our AI friend, AI sales brain, and the work that we've done to help us do this by plugging in that. Still needs the human touch. It still needs our intelligence looking at it, but some of the clunking through it can be done quite quick. If we really want to bring it alive, we are going to present as a human. I don't think humans are going away from sales. I think the human touch, the people talking to people, and what people are bringing to it, yeah, it's all going to be important. Proposal gives us a structure for presentations. Presentations also need a bit of a structure of their own. I do see a lot of presentations that don't even have the most basic structure. The basic one, you learn it at the nursery, pretty much, or certainly at early school, beginning, middle, end. They don't really have those. That's easy enough to fix. The other thing which is easy enough to fix, but which a lot don't seem to, is flipping who you're talking about. Early on, talk about the customer. Too many companies are setting it up with, here's a map of the world with all our offices over it. Here's a picture of some of our buildings. Here's our product map. Here's the logos of companies that we've sold to. The customer doesn't care about that. You sound like everybody else. Yeah, we've got different logos. Our office is shining and we've got 14 more offices. They don't care. They're thinking about those problems that they've got. Flip it around so you can capture them early with, this is what problem you have. These are challenges that we discussed. This is what you're trying to achieve. You're in. Yeah. You've already got their attention and it will flow far more naturally. Flows even more naturally if you can bring stories into it. Yeah, so storytelling in sales is quite a hot topic at the moment because people have realized how well it works. And there's different ways in which you can structure stories. There's quite simple success stories. You can write one in a minute. You can deliver it in 60 seconds, 30 seconds. We can use a whole, and that's based on a hero's journey pattern. We can take hero's journey. We can construct a whole kind of presentation around that, if that's the right thing to do. But understanding what's going on in that hero's journey is quite important. So yeah, it works pretty well. So moving on. I've got a little eye on the clock here. our last little chunk. So this is about how we evolve. How do we evolve? How do we keep the business moving forward? So outcomes, reviews, relationship building. Spoken already about this. I can get pretty soapboxy, which is that people buy outcomes, they buy the results. So we've got to make sure that that is what they are achieving. That's what we've sold. Also creates opportunity for us to sell more, get referral, all that good stuff. So really that focus on outcomes is absolutely key. I love the fact that some industries talk about customer success. Yeah, we sell success. Their success is our success. So we should be trying to deliver that. And one of the ways we can do this is by having quarterly value reviews. Now, I know QBR, quarterly business review, is quite popular. I've said before, I'll say again, say it now, I think they're a waste of time. Waste of time. Because set up badly, what they do is they talk about, look at all these wonderful things that we did. Actually, done really badly, they turn into a sales pitch. Did a podcast recently about that. Customer success manager was saying how she'd said to the supplier, this is what I need you to talk about. They came in, ignored her, set her up, or stitched her up in front of all the execs. Wasn't happy. Yeah, they weren't talking about the value. So again, there's structures in which we can build those. We can think about, how do we keep building the relationship? How do we keep thinking like a partner, doing all that good stuff that makes a difference? Of course, I'm going to shout the book out again. That's what we do, isn't it? But no, seriously, that mindset of we are in this together. I think I've just said it. Your success is my success is a healthy way a salesperson can think. So there we go. There we go. Bit of a fly through there. How you can, with the pillars, so the pillars are going to inform the activity and how we can take some practical activity and put that into place. Has this been helpful? Has this been helpful? Yes, no answer, isn't it? Yes, no answer. Can you drop it into there? Say no, I've got to rewrite this, haven't I, for next time? So yeah, I'm getting a couple of little yeses. Actually, probably what I should say is who's gonna apply the thinking. That's what the trainer in me should be saying. Who's gonna apply it? How are you going to apply it? Yeah. Because what I'll do is I'll just take a beat here. Are there any questions? Is there anything that I've said? Because I know I have gone fast because I wanted to cram a lot in. Any questions around what I'm saying there? Any challenges? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm talking nonsense? If there's any questions that you think I can answer fast, you could drop them in there. Okay, look, go away, try to apply it. Have I earned the right to give you a 3-minute pitch and give you something that I've not spoken to anybody about yet? Have I earned the right? I'll do it anyway. Right. So, one of the things that what we offer at Brindis, we offer an accelerator, an academy, and the activator. So the accelerator, this is actually pretty much what I was describing there, and how you take this stuff and apply it across 90 days. Mixture of training and coaching. So it's using that schematic I showed you. Activator, it's the sort of the self-help by digital, apply to yourself. Actually, technically, the academy hasn't existed before. Well, it has. It's in my mind as a kind of a concept, but we are about to launch, or we're in the process of launching, the Engineering Sales Academy. How can we help engineers, people who are on this journey from being technically brilliant to the trusted advisor that I know many aspire to be? Now, how do we assist that product to problem thinking without losing all the goodness, but directing it into doing a lot of the stuff that I've said? That is about to come to life. So what I will do is I will drop into chat. If I can see that hidden behind that microphone, a link to the fledgling, I say fledgling, the fledgling web page. Yeah, there's a wait list on there, so you can't even buy this yet. Hopeless pitch, Copestake. You can't even buy it. No, but people can go and have a look, and if you think, hey, that's interesting, yeah, put me down, or can I talk to you more about it, Fred? There you go. Um, there's a bunch of stuff that it does, loads of different elements. Sorry, we can't read that slide, but yeah, you'll see that on that page. So look, there you go. That's it. That's what I wanted to just put in in place. It's all about helping people on this journey. I think it's quite important. Many of the people I'm meeting, they want to get better at this stuff, and they're willing to invest the time and effort. So there we go. I'm still looking down there and seeing if there's any questions. I've got a thumbs up. I'll take that as a positive. Yeah. Got a couple of thank yous. So thank you for your time. I will wait kind of a gone type thing, but there's a couple of thanks. So there you go. That's what I want to present. The pillars. It's the first time I've presented that in public. It's been some thinking behind what I've been doing and informed it. I've decided to use it and say, hey, look, let's just call it out. Let's label these things. Let's use it to help us on this journey to be better at the stuff that we're doing, because ultimately it's the shift from product to problem. That's what's going to give us commercially stronger conversations. Cheers, Frederick. Some food for thought. Good. That is what I'm here to do. I'm here to stimulate thinking. So thank you. Thank you. And look, if you have questions, you know I'm there on LinkedIn. You'll find me.